there, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be doing the third and probably the last in my series of colouring water, how I colour it. And today I thought I would have some fun using my Sennelier Oil Pastels. And I'm colouring this picture in this Country Scenes book. I'm not following their colour scheme at all. I've done the sky and the mountains and the trees and some of the reeds. So I wanted to do this little fiddly bit off screen so that I didn't take hours and hours and hours, and I wanted to just try some techniques with the oil pastels to see how they go. I hope that you enjoy the video, and I will zoom in so that you can see a little bit better. I'm first going to erase some of the oil pastel that I managed to get on the reeds, and it's remarkably easy to erase it. I was surprised. I use my oil pastels very, very seldom, so this is a bit of an experiment to me. I just rubbed the oil pastel onto some cotton buds to apply them in between these reeds, which I had coloured with fine liners. I did the mountains with gouache actually, and if you're interested in me doing 1 or 2 videos of using gouache in adult colouring books, please leave a comment below, as this really helps me to give you content that you find useful and worth spending your very valuable time watching. It really is my hope and desire to share things with you that give you joy and that help you perhaps a little bit, or show you things that you'd like to know. So I was quite pleased with how easily this erased. I find oil pastels very thick, and it had been my thought to try applying them thickly and then to scrape some of the oil pastel off to use the white of the paper underneath to give some highlights. But I'll show you how I get on with that idea and whether I come up with anything else later on. So bear with me and let's see how this all works out. It's an experiment for me to try and maybe save you trying the same thing, or otherwise encouraging you. Let's see how it works out. So now I'm going to apply some of the oil pastel onto this little cotton bud and try getting into the little tight spaces between just this little reed and around the little birdie. It's quite easy to rub off onto the cotton bud. The Sennelier oil pastels are artist quality oil pastels and quite nice and soft and creamy. I don't know that there's something that I'll ever invest in again, because I bought them probably 3 years ago and I hardly ever use them. I've tried 1 or 2 backgrounds that haven't been wholly successful, and then I've been watching a few people using oil pastels, and so I thought, let me try them on my water quest. I suspect that perhaps I'm a little bit impatient for something like this. I like the water-based things like gouache and watercolor. They go on more quickly, and that seems to suit my nature better. I suppose we all have different media that appeal to us more easily. Have you ever been canoeing? I look at this little picture with the dog in amazement. I'm such a nervous person in water. My husband had a canoe when we were newly married, and which he built himself actually, and we used to go out, and I was always anxious. The poor man, I'd always say, oh, we're going to turn over, be careful, be careful. So I think it spoiled things a little bit. Now I'm applying the oil pastels directly onto the paper, but they're very thick. So my plan is to spread them with the little cotton bud and just see how that works. I'm quite pleased with how the mountains in this one turned out. And I think I'm going to do the canoe just in pencils, because that's fine. And so now I decided to try adding yellow to try and have, I was inspired by the cover image and to try and give the reflection of the sun, but in my wisdom I didn't, well, you'll see what happens. I forgot about color mixing and yellow and blue creating green. I'm also using a paler blue, which is a particularly creamy color. It's very soft. I wish they would make like they make soft pastels in pencil form. I wish they'd make oil pastels in pencil form so that one could like get into the finer spaces with these beautifully soft, creamy things. I think that would be nice. So now I'm going to try spreading this with the cotton bud and see how that goes, which is fairly hard work on the finger, and I'm thinking I might also try down the line using a paper stump, which is a little bit thicker, and see how that works. But I have all my little cotton buds, so it's spreading okay. I'm not able to get all that neatly right next to the small areas, and I'm not sure how, so to me that looks okay, the pale blue and the dark blue. But now, in my wisdom, I'm moving the dark blue over the yellow, and it looks green. And I've kind of comforted myself a little bit by thinking, okay, well, you'd also get a slightly green reflection on the water from the hills. So it's not a total train smash. I don't know. I'm not thrilled with this. As I go along, I may find ways of overcoming it and finding fixes for it, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit so that you can see how we end up. So I'm basically trying to put some yellow oil pastel on to show the reflection of the sunlight. I've tried both applying it with a cotton bud and directly onto the paper and then smoothing it with a cotton bud. And I'm also using a paler blue and a darker blue directly onto the paper and smoothing it with a cotton bud. I really feel as if I've made the wrong choice adding the yellow, because, as I said earlier, you'll see how the yellow and the blue end up making green. I thought perhaps I could cover it up by applying more of this blue on top of the yellow, and that made the problem worse. So, you know, not to do that. And then I just ended up finishing this whole section by applying the oil pastel directly to the paper and smoothing it with my cotton bud. So now I've decided to try and go over what I've done with some acrylic paint, and I'm going to try and go over the greeny color with a sort of a turquoise green, which I feel looks better on the water than the green I've got. This acrylic paint is applying quite easily over the oil pastel to my relief, and I'm just applying that over all the yellow places, the yellowy green places. And I also sort of try it here and there in the bay. the water is starting to look a little bit on the dirty side to me now. Oh dear, I wonder if this lake is suffering from pollution. Please let me know in the comments how many of you have tried all sorts of things to fix mistakes. I'd love to know. I nearly didn't share this video with you guys, and then I thought, oh well, let me share my mistakes and the disasters, let you have a giggle. I must just make clear at the very beginning that this is not a colour along. I think I'm going to put that in the title. So then I'm going to also use a dark blue to mix with this. Of course, I'm trying to thin it and the yellow is sort of shining through again. So now I'm using this dark blue, also an acrylic, a different make of acrylic, different brand. And my poor reeds are looking a bit the worse for wear with all the oil pastel on top of them, because I also tried going over the oil pastel with some pencil blend. My camera stopped filming at the time that I was doing that, but that also went over these reeds quite a lot and messed that up. So I'm basically just painting, flat painting over all of this lot with the darker blue. Okay, well, I'm basically just flat painting with the acrylic to cover all the mess that I made, and I'm going to be using now some Posca pens to go over the mess that the oil pastels have made. And then I'm not sure, I may try, I've got some white acrylic paint here and a very fine paintbrush. I might try that, or I'll try my white. I think maybe I'm just going to go with the white Posca because I know that works. So my final feeling on using oil pastels like this is that they didn't work. I tried them on a piece of rough paper, and I tried, this is just a dip pen, just the nib, and I've got like a credit card kind of thing, and I went through, and that's sort of what I had in mind, but it hasn't worked on this paper and in this instance. So for me, this was a failed experiment and not a how-to, but maybe a dialogue on trying new things and trying to make something that's not working work. So I'm going to just complete this and then I'd used masking tape because of using the gouache paint. I'm now using the Posca pens to go over the leaves, and luckily they took quite well and they went over the oil pastel quite nicely, and they're covering some of the disaster. So I think that that's working quite nicely. To try and get the nice finer point at the tip of the reeds, I've also pushed some of the Posca paint onto my little palette, and I'm using a paintbrush to apply it. I find the nib on the Posca is a little bit fat to get the thin reed leaf look. And there we are. I've taken all the tape around from the edges, and we've got some nice clean edges, and the piece is finished. So I wasn't going to share the whole piece with you. I was just going to do the water, but seeing as that the water was a bit of a flop, I hope you've enjoyed watching the video and seeing that when you make a mistake, if something isn't working, that you can actually end up with an okay result. I'm going to put some white Posca down there just to clean up those edges. but I'm fairly happy with the piece. Other than that, I'd love to know what you think, and I'd love to hear your experiences if you've ever tried to do a larger area with oil pastels and if you've ever been successful or not. But I enjoyed playing and trying it out, and I thank you for watching, and I thank you for your time, and I do hope you'll take a second and click the like button if you've liked it, and leave me a comment if you have a minute to do so. I do so love hearing from you. Have a wonderful, colourful week. Bye-bye now.